The year is 214 BC. The sun beats down on the Mediterranean. A fleet of Roman warships cuts through the waves, quinqueremes bristling with soldiers. Their target is Syracuse. Marcus Claudius Marcellus is confident. He's a veteran who knows how to take a city. His ships are the pinnacle of naval power, packed with ladders, catapults, hardened legionaries ready for the fight. They expect a straightforward assault on the sea walls, but they're about to get the shock of their lives. A shadow falls over the lead ship, not from a cloud, something monstrous. A huge wooden beam swings out from the battlements. A giant arm reaches from the city itself. At its end, a massive iron hook, a grapple like a hawk's talon. It slams into the prow. A sickening crunch of timber. The grapple bites deep into the hull. Then the impossible happens. The front of the warship lurches upwards. It's lifted out of the sea. Men scream and tumble into the water. The ship hangs suspended like a fisherman's catch. The mastermind behind this terrifying weapon was not a young, ambitious general. He was a 75-year-old scholar. His name was Archimedes. By the time the Romans arrived at his doorstep, he was already a living legend. He was the greatest mathematician and inventor of the ancient world, a man whose mind operated on a different plane. He saw the world not just in terms of politics and power, but in levers, pulleys, angles, and the fundamental principles of physics. He was a man who famously claimed, "Give me a place to stand, and I will move the earth." It wasn't an idle boast. It was a statement of his profound understanding of mechanical advantage. Archimedes had spent his life in the pursuit of knowledge. He was born in Syracuse, a bustling Greek city-state on the island of Sicily. He had studied in Alexandria, the intellectual capital of the world, but his heart and his home were always in Syracuse. He was more interested in abstract geometry and theoretical problems than in practical applications. To understand why Archimedes built his machines, we need to look at the bigger picture. This was the time of the Second Punic War, a colossal struggle for dominance between the two superpowers of the ancient Mediterranean, Rome and Carthage. It spanned decades and drew countless smaller states into its vortex. For years, Syracuse had been a loyal ally. After the death of Hero II, the political winds shifted. New young rulers, swayed by promises from Hannibal, switched sides. This was a gamble, a fatal one. Rome could not tolerate such a betrayal. Syracuse was a major naval base controlling the sea lanes around Sicily. In Carthaginian hands, it would be a dagger at the heart of Rome. The Roman Senate sent Marcus Claudius Marcellus with one order: take Syracuse. In 214 BC, a massive Roman force arrived. Army approached by land fleet of 60 quinqueremes, approached by sea ships packed with soldiers, ships carrying siege equipment, blockade and invasion routes around Syracuse. Marcellus expected a quick fall. So, what was this terrifying machine? How did it work? The Claw of Archimedes, or Manus Ferreia? The Iron Hand? A masterpiece of simple, powerful engineering? Ancient descriptions are sparse, but enough clues survive to sketch its likely design. At its core, a crane, a very large, very strong crane mounted on the city walls overlooking the harbour. A long wooden beam or several beams joined together, pivoting and rotating, swinging out over the water to reach Roman ships. The genius was in the operation. The arm was counterweighted. Imagine a giant seesaw, one end the long arm, one end the heavy iron grapple. Other end hidden, a massive weight, probably a huge container of rocks or lead, ropes and powerful winches, men lowering the counterweight. As it dropped, the lever did the work. The arm slammed upward. It could lift whatever the grapple seized. A quinquereme's prow lifted clear from the waves. The effect of the claw on the Roman navy was honestly just devastating. Physically, psychologically. The Roman strategy was, well, completely undone. Marcellus had planned to bring his ships right up against the sea walls. He wanted to use his Sambuca siege towers to get his legionaries over the battlements. But the claw made this impossible. Any ship that got within range of the walls was at risk of being grabbed, lifted, destroyed. The Romans were used to fighting men, not mechanical monsters that reached out from the walls to pluck their ships from the sea. The first assault was a bloody, chaotic failure. The losses were immediate and honestly, just shocking. Entire warships, each carrying hundreds of soldiers. Sailors were lost in minutes. One moment they were part of a proud, orderly naval formation, the next they were a wreck of splintered wood and drowning men. But the physical damage was only half the story. The psychological impact was far greater. Roman soldiers were among the bravest in the world. They faced death in battle without flinching. We know about the terror the Claw inspired thanks to the vivid accounts of ancient historians who recorded the events of the siege. Though they wrote years or centuries later, they drew on eyewitness testimonies that captured the shock and awe of Roman soldiers. The Greek historian Polybius, writing a few decades after the siege, gives one of the earliest, most detailed accounts. He describes Roman ships being lifted up into the air, plunged headlong into the depths, dashed against the rocks. He emphasizes the complete helplessness of Roman crews against this mechanical marvel. Plutarch, a Roman historian writing in the 1st–2nd century AD, gives an even more dramatic account of Marcellus. He paints a general confounded by one man's genius. Plutarch says Archimedes' machines made the Romans feel they fought the gods. He captures the psychological terror perfectly. If they saw a little rope or piece of wood on the wall, they'd cry, "There it is, Archimedes moving an engine." The claw was Archimedes' most famous weapon, but it was far from his only one. He had fortified Syracuse with a whole range of ingenious and deadly devices, creating a coordinated, multi-layered defense system. The Roman assault, whether by land or by sea, was met with what the ancient writers called a symphony of destruction. Each machine was designed for a specific purpose, a specific range, and a specific threat. The Romans were not just facing a wall, they were facing an integrated network of death machines, all orchestrated by a single, brilliant mind. For the ships that stayed further out, beyond the reach of the claw, Archimedes had developed immensely powerful catapults and ballistae. These were not the standard artillery of the day. Archimedes had redesigned them to be more accurate, more powerful, and capable of firing much heavier projectiles over longer distances. They could hurl massive stones weighing 1/4 of a ton or more. A direct hit could smash through a ship's hull, sinking it instantly. The Romans were being pounded by artillery long before they even got close to the walls. Despite the genius of Archimedes, the fate of Syracuse was ultimately sealed. The city's incredible defense had held off the Romans for 2 long years, a remarkable feat against such a determined superpower. Marcellus, unable to take the city by force, had settled for a brutal blockade. While the claw and the other machines could protect the walls, they could not create food. Slowly but surely, supplies within the city dwindled. Starvation and disease began to do what the Roman legions could not. The resolve of the defenders and their political leadership started to fray. The end came not with a bang but with a whisper. It came through betrayal and complacency. During a religious festival in 212 BC, the people of Syracuse were celebrating. They believed perhaps that the Romans had given up on a direct assault. Security was lax. A pro-Roman faction within the city used the opportunity to signal to Marcellus. They told him of a weakly guarded section of the wall. Under the cover of darkness, a small group of Roman soldiers scaled the undefended ramparts and opened a gate from the inside. The Claw of Archimedes was more than just a clever weapon. It was a turning point. Its legacy echoed down through the centuries, influencing military thinking, engineering, the very story of human invention. In the short term, it taught a powerful lesson to the Roman military. They learned that brute force was not always the answer. They discovered that a technologically inferior enemy could, with enough ingenuity, inflict a shocking defeat. The Siege of Syracuse forced commanders to think more carefully about technology and to respect the power of a well-defended position fortified by clever engineering. It was a wake-up call. For engineers and inventors who came after, the claw became a legendary example of what was possible. It was a story passed down, a testament to the power of applying scientific principles to real-world problems. The machine itself, based on the simple lever and fulcrum, was a demonstration of a fundamental physical law. It showed that with the right knowledge, a few men could wield the force of hundreds. This idea, the amplification of human effort through mechanical advantage, is a cornerstone of all engineering, from the simple crowbar to the most complex modern hydraulic cranes that build our skyscrapers. The Claw is a dramatic early ancestor of all of them, and a stark reminder that one brilliant idea can be more powerful than an entire army.